What is going on? It's Peppy, and I'm here with another video. Now, one of the most well-known things of Pokemon are the 18 Pokemon types. There's the simple fire, water, grass, electric, rock, ground, flying, ice, bug, and steel. Then there's the unique ones like poison, psychic, dark, fighting, ghost, and even dragon and fairy. And let's not forget the abnormal normal type. Now for each type, there are types it's super effective against and types that are super effective against it. For example, water beats fire, but water is also beaten by grass. But there are some weaknesses that don't seem to make sense at first. Like why in the name of Arceus is poison weak to psychic? Well, that and many more will be explained today. You might think poison would be good against psychic because toxins inhibiting the brain would cause some serious damage, but think about it. The brain is the most complex organ in the human body. Sure, poison would cause some serious damage if it got into the mind, but who says the poison would even stay for long when the brain is quite literally the smartest part of the body? Mainly, psychic is effective against poison because the mind is smart enough to create successful antidotes. Now why is poison weak to ground? When you think of types, you wouldn't normally compare ground and poison if ground wasn't poison's weakness. Simply, landfills are used to trap waste. Why ground and not rock? Garbage dumps aren't held by rocks, they're held by the ground. Duh. Now poison has got a lot of confusing spotlight, so let's talk about stuff it's super effective against. Now poison is super effective against fairy, which makes sense. But a lot of people are really confused on why steel is effective against fairy. Now let me just say that fairies, the fairy type Pokemon are based off of, are not tiny winged sprite we usually think of, but rather real fairies in European folklore. They were usually represented as tall human-like creatures with magical powers. Now the folklore states that fairies used flint to create weapons because they feared iron. Iron was like a poison to them, which explains their poison weakness as well. Now speaking of fairies, why are fairy types good against dragon, fighting, and dark? Have you ever heard of fairy tales? Well, you know what creature is always slain at the end of those tales? Dragons. That explains both its effectiveness against it, and its immunity to them, because dragons have no chance in ever succeeding in fairy tales. Now, we know that the good versus evil thing is represented by fighting versus dark, so why add a type that's good against both of them? Dark usually represents the villain, and fighting usually represents the hero, but the hero isn't always necessarily good. But fairies are purely positive, and fighting can be negative at times. And as for dark, some fairies represent light, and light shines over darkness and bad fighting. Dragons are powerful creatures, only being beat by a few things. They also resist the 4 elemental types. Fire, because dragon scales are fireproof. Water, because some dragons are aquatic. Grass, because plants will be trampled on by towering dragons. Though, electric is a tricky one. The only reason I can find is that since dragons were built to fly through storms, they have evolved to survive lightning strikes. I guess that makes sense. Now electric is known to be super effective against water and flying, which makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is why steel isn't weak to it. Steel is used in many devices to conduct electricity. Thing is, steel isn't exactly harmed by it. Fish in electrocuted water would probably be dead, and birds struck by lightning in midair would have more of a negative effect than a regular thing being on the ground being struck. Now grass has an understandable amount of resistances, but the most confusing one is electricity. Simply put, wood is a poor conductor of electricity, and before you say it, it's the fire from lightning strikes that destroys a tree, not the lightning itself. For some reason, grass doesn't resist rock, but that's probably because even though plants' roots can break rock, throwing rock at a plant won't exactly do nothing. Also, for some reason, water doesn't resist ground, which is likely because even though water washes away dirt, the ground can drain the water. Just can't really harm it to be super effective against it. Now, ground-resisting bug is confused vastly. The reason is because most bugs can dig and burrow through the dirt. Seriously, why can't people get this? Did you know that bug and fighting are the only 2 types that actually resist each other? Bug resists fighting because you wouldn't punch a bug, and you would step on it, but that's not really considered fighting. And and fighting resist bug, because why would a martial arts master want to fight an insect? And finally, to bring us back to where we started, bug isn't weak to poison because some bugs, like scorpions, use poison to survive. Now I'm just going to finish this off with the 9 types that resist themselves. For all of them, except for Psychic, it's because adding more stuff to what's already there is just, adding more stuff. As for Psychic, it's because mind attacks aren't strong against another person with a strong mind. Now, that was my first non-musical Pokemon video, and hopefully more will come in the future. I'm really enjoying talking about these fake creatures, and if I've missed any more confusing type effectiveness, or you don't agree with any of my explanations, then leave a comment in the section below. So that was it for today, and if you want, hit that like button and the subscribe button to join the Pepperoni military. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.